so did I. If we realized our love was worth defending, then our story's broken thread we might be mending.
Thank you for being here tonight at the Queen Dome. How appropriate in so many ways. Listen, this show that you're going to see, I originally did this show in 1998 at a rival venue, the Assembly Rooms, and that was with the intention of marking the first anniversary of the death of Princess Diana. And it seems to me that 2007 is as good a time as any to revisit not only the show, but the events of that week. August the 31st, 1997. That was the night she died. And because everybody said at the time, didn't they, oh, we'll never forget. We'll never forget where we were, you know, that it was so... It was a turning point in our history. Everything has changed. Do you remember that? How everyone used to say that at the time? But I wonder how much you do actually remember about what happened during that week. I mean, I expect you all remember where you were when you heard the news, don't you? Of course, well, in bed, yes, of course. How could you forget that? No, but everybody, you know, it's like with JFK, people feel it's significant in some way, don't they? Where you were. You have to be able to remember where you were when you heard the news. Now, you're obviously British, aren't you, sir? Yes. See, how many, let's just have a show of hands here. How many people here sitting in the audience are British? That includes Scottish. Come on. You're still part of the Union. Yes, okay, the majority. Anyone from overseas?
What about Welsh?
Well, oh, that's well. Well, we're in Scotland, you see, so I was making a topical reference. Oh, nothing. See, always the Welsh are contrary, aren't they? Are you Welsh? Who is it, the Welsh person up there? Yes, okay. And who's from outside the UK? Who's from abroad? Okay, where from?
Greece.
Greece? Oh, was it a big hit over there, Diana's death?
Was, yeah.
Did they? Were they get excited?
It wasn't in the news, yeah.
Yes? Oh, you don't sound Greek, are you?
Wow, I'm from Athens.
Oh, you? Oh, how lovely. Well, isn't it funny to think they got excited in Athens? You know, all that history of your own you've got there. You would have thought that would be enough, wouldn't you? But, and the lady here, was it?
Yes.
Where from?
Sweden.
Sweden. Ah, really? And they were excited about it there too, were they? It all upset. It's very interesting. It was a global phenomenon, really, wasn't it? And actually, I'll tell you, of course, most of you were in bed when it actually happened, weren't you? I bet you were. And you heard about it later, didn't you? When you got up later on that day. Now, I did this show in Australia in 1999 at the Sydney Opera House, believe it or not, and I asked the audience this question, where were you when you heard the news? And this woman shouted out right from the back of the auditorium, she said, I was upstairs, my husband was upstairs in the bathroom listening to it on the radio, and he shouted down to me that Di and Dodie had been killed after they were chased by Pavarotti. But it could happen, couldn't it? You know, I think there's something quite plausible about it. But see, I'll tell you where I was when I heard the news. I was in Britain, but I was actually one of the few people who was up and about when the news was coming in, because it was the last night of the Edinburgh Fringe, August the 31st, 97. And we were all done our last performances. And I was in the bar, the Assembly Rooms, you see, you know, relaxing after the last show, me and all the other stars. Don't push it, don't push it. And I was there, you know, knocking it back with all the others. And somebody came up to me, I think it was the stage manager on my show, this little girl, she came up and she said, she said, have you heard there's been an accident? There's been a news flash, and there's been an accident, and Dodie is dead. I thought, Dodie? Do I know a Dodie? Surely not Dodie Smith, author of 101 Dalmatians. She died years ago, wasn't she? She was over 90 then. It can't be him. Then, of course, I remembered, of course. Him. The one who's been knocking around with Earl. all over the billboards. You see, I'd hardly paid any attention because I was having such a great success with my show about Kenneth Williams at the Assembly Rooms. You know, and I didn't even look at the papers unless there was a wonderful review of my show in it. I hadn't even noticed all these capers in the Côte d'Azur, you see. I hadn't even paid any attention at all. So finally, you know, she said, yeah, this new Dodie's dead. And I got it, of course, Dodie, yes, the one who's been knocked down with that, all over the billboards. I said, really? Is he dead? What happened? She said, well, they don't know. He's definitely dead. She's all right. She's been injured. Diana's been injured. She's got a broken arm and a scratch on her thigh and a bit of concussion. But she's fine. I remember thinking to myself, isn't it strange how everyone who comes into contact with her, something happens to them. They get burnt in some way. Remember all those personal assistants and receptionists and, you know, researchers she got through towards the end, one after the other, sacked, resigned, leaving in tears, and all those men, Gilby, and the other one, what's his name? Harry's dad. What's his name? James Hewitt, yes, that's right, James Hewitt, yes. No, we'll come on to it in a minute. James Hewitt, yes, thank you. See, it's common knowledge, isn't it? Common knowledge. Whore. Oliver Whore, the antiques dealer. You know. And the other one, yes, Mr. Carling, who you mentioned. Nice Mr. Carling, who she set up with all those photographers. So that he'd get caught visiting her after Mrs. Carling had made a public statement to the effect that if her husband was ever caught visiting the slut princess again, he'll be looking down the wrong end of a divorce suit. And he was. And now this Dodie was dead. And I thought, well, obviously it's a plot, isn't it? She's had him bumped off. Diana. She's got bored of him. She's spoken to her friends in the Secret Service and said, get rid of him. He's a boring sight, can't you? Organise an accident or something, can't you? You know. Admittedly, it was a risky strategy on her part to be riding in the car with him when the accident occurred, but nobody could say she wasn't determined, could they? And I wasn't the only one treating it as a joke. We all were. We were having a big laugh about it at first. You know, it was so outlandish it could have been a hoax for all we knew. And I was going around the Assembly Rooms bar saying, what have you heard? Dodie's dead and Di's got a broken... Oh, hello, have you heard? Because there's something rather nice, isn't there, about being the first person with bad news. Don't you think, you know, when somebody's died and you get to be the one who goes around telling people, and you meet someone, you can tell they haven't heard, they're too jolly and cheerful, and so you say, oh, have you heard so-and-so's dead? And you see the colour drain from their face. They go, oh, really? Something rather delicious about that, isn't there? And I was going around saying, oh, have you heard? Dodie's dead and Di's got a broken arm. Oh, have you heard? Oh, hello. Have you heard? Apparently, Dodie's dead and Di's got a broken arm. And I went up to this one bloke and said, have you heard? Dodie's dead, Di's got a broken arm. And he said, well, what's the punchline? Well, we found out the punchline, didn't we? When we got home, me and my chums, back to my flat, and with our soggy pizzas from Bar Napoli. Put the television on, about 4:30 in the morning this would have been, and there it was, the news confirmed. Dodie dead. Diana injured. That's what they were still saying at this point. There was even an eyewitness who came on television and said that they'd seen her wandering around at the scene of the accident, chattering away. You know. So we thought, well, obviously she's done it again. She's a survivor after all. And it wasn't until, I suppose, about 4:45 in the morning that we first got an inkling that something was wrong. That they weren't telling us everything they knew. Because the night shift newsreader had a strange, distracted look in his eyes, which were obviously working independently of his mouth, which was still telling us that she was all right. And I suppose it was about half an hour after that that he used for the first time those terrible words that the Press Association, citing unconfirmed reports, are saying that Diana, Princess of Wales, is dead. Which was a surprise, you must admit, wasn't it? You can't deny it, can you? It was a surprise. It wasn't on the agenda, was it? I mean, she'd been in the newspapers every day up until that point, attracting acres of unfavourable coverage. And now suddenly this. And I didn't know what to make, but it was like one of your favourite characters being written out of a soap opera in the middle of an interesting plot line. And I found it personally tragic for me because, you see, she was 6 months older than me. And I always felt that as bad as it felt for me to be getting older and older year by year, she would always be there, just one step ahead of me. You know, still looking gorgeous and giving me a feeling of hope. And now she was gone. And we just didn't know what to think, me and my chums. And we went off to our beds about 8 o'clock in the morning, I should think. I slept, I think, about 2 o'clock in the following afternoon. And of course, by the time I woke up, everybody knew. Even in Greece, Athens, you see, Sweden, everybody knew. Everybody knew that in the whole world that Diana was dead. While I'd been asleep, the news had been going round and round the world. And in that strange alchemy of death, Her image was transformed the moment that people heard she was gone. I mean, everybody suddenly forgot about how they laughed at her and mocked her and sneered at her right to the end. You know, we knew what her game was, didn't we? That Panorama interview, come on, you know. Queen of people's hearts was an extraordinary ambition. Everybody forgot about this, and they hurled themselves into the grief pool. You saw people laying flowers at Kensington Palace, so everybody wanted to lay flowers at Kensington Palace. Or if you couldn't get to the palace, in specially designated flower-laying areas, usually near some railings. People like to leave their flowers near railings, don't they? There's some kind of correlation between railings and grief, which has never been fully explained. Or you saw people queuing for hours in silence to sign their names in a little book of condolence. So everybody wanted to queue up for hours and write the names in a little book of condolence. By the way, isn't it strange? In post office queues, after 30 seconds, people are complaining, aren't they? You know, 32 seconds I've been here now, are you? 37 seconds now, but in this queue, people are bragging about how long they've been there. I've been here 14 hours! And I'm so grief-stricken I haven't complained once. I admit, when she was alive, I wouldn't have queued up for 5 minutes to spit on her. But now she's dead! I'll queue for Diana! I'll do it for... I mean, why? This huge great uprising, what was it all about? Because nobody's ever really been able to explain it, have they? You see, what I think it might be, that this was a different kind of historical event. Most history happens on distant battlefields, you know, or in the marbled halls of government. But here was a great, big, live, churning, interactive historical event, and everybody could be part of it. All you had to do was buy a cheap bunch of flowers and sling on the pile, and you could say you had played your part in history. And if people didn't believe you, that you were there, you could prove it. Your name's in the book. All they had to do is dig into the warehouse and find the volume that your name's in, and there it is, proof forever that you were there, you see. It was easy to take part. It's not surprising everybody wanted to jump on the bandwagon, or the gun carriage, as it turned out, you see. I mean, the funeral plans, they had to keep changing them every day to take account of this great unexpected outpouring of public grief. Because the first thing they announced was it's going to be a little quiet family affair. Just the Spencers, 1 or 2 close friends, and possibly a member of the royal family as a mark of respect. Possibly. But no, they soon realized that this wouldn't do at all, and everybody who had ever met the princess in whatever capacity, and however briefly, would be invited. That was Noel Coward, wasn't it? Sorry. Where did he come from? Oh, they had to the route of the cortege. They had to actually lengthen it every day. You see, first of all, it was going to be about 3 yards long. You know, go on, get out of it. But no, the more grief-stricken the public became, the further that coffin was going to have to trundle to get to Westminster Abbey. The television companies grabbed every camera, every inch of cable they could get their hands on. There was none left in London. Any other news story would just have to wait. Well, there were no other news stories, were there? I mean, California could have slipped unnoticed into the sea for all we would have cared, you see. Mother Teresa could have popped her clogs and gone to end, we wouldn't have even noticed. Well, she did. And we didn't. Sorry, this was Diana's big day. And every inch of that route had to be covered, just in case something happened. I thought it might. I thought something dreadful was going to happen. Because there were 6 million extra people in London that day. 6 million! And grief-stricken, irrational people at that. No telling what they might have done. I was glad I was up here in Edinburgh watching it on the television, lying on the sofa in my pyjamas, unwashed, with a pot of tea. To safe distance, you see, watching it all unfold on television. Let's see what's on, by the way. Oh, here we are, Richard and Judy. Yes, the day before the funeral, Richard and Judy's 3-hour Diana special. Surely a career best for them. Second only to the time Judy got her tits out at that award ceremony. But no, there'll be none of that. Not today of all days, no. Now, Richard's job on this show is to get Judy to cry. That's the money shot. That's the one he's going for, and he finally hits pay dirt as he's giving out the number for people to phone or fax their messages of condolence. So that's 0171 401 7777. And personally, I think that I'd have to use the fax because I don't think I could trust my voice to leave a message the way I feel today. Anyway, Judy. Joan Collins, Alan Bates, Dame Thora Hurd, Terry Woke. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. No, that's all right, love. That's okay. I'll take over. Okay. Those names and others will be joining us today with poetry, which they feel is fitting to the princess. But first, we have Jackie in Northampton. Hello, Jackie. Are you there? Jackie in Northampton. Hello? Hello, Jackie. Hello, you okay? Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it? It's really dreadful, isn't it? Yeah, it is. I just wanted to say that I think Diana was the most beautiful of British roses. She was pruned too early, but she left behind 2 buds to bloom later. Well, thank you very much for that, Jackie. That's lovely. And now a special treat. We're going to meet all those unfortunate children, those tragic kiddies whose lives were brightened by Diana in their darkest days. And at this point, a lovely little girl in great big thick glasses sitting on a cushion down there talks very movingly and honestly about how Diana had sent her flowers when she came from hospital just only a week or 2 before. Even though she was on holiday with Dodie, she actually sent a little bunch of flowers with a handwritten note. And Richard looks at her and he says, "So what's the matter with you then?" The matter. And she says, I've got leukemia. Right, great, thanks very much. Well, little boy over there, little boy in the calipers, what have you got over there? I can't stand any more of this. No, let's see what's on the BBC. Here we are on the BBC, hollow-eyed presenters doing double, triple, and even quadruple shifts are trying to make sense of it all, usually with the help of Barbara Cartland. Well, you see the thing, Mr. Sisson, she was so terribly lonely. That was a dreadful thing. She used to sit there night after night in that great big house, no one to talk to, no little ladies in waiting, nothing. It's not surprising she used to go roaring off in the middle of the night in a big black car and visit some man who was dying and cheer him up and come home again all alone in the middle of the night. And I said to her, didn't I, darling? I said to him, you must promise me, darling, you'll never do anything like that again. I said, anything could have happened. I said, the car could have been snatched out from underneath you. It was the same with these appalling children. I mean, these children with these appalling diseases that she said she cared so much about. You see, I think she thought that they were lonely like she was. You see, I think she thought it was all going to be like one of my lovely books for her, the beautiful young virgin gets swept off her feet by a handsome prince and has 2 lovely babies and is happily ever after. And she did. She had 2 lovely boys. Very good shots, the pair of them, a real credit to her. Ow! Get off! Get off! No, go! Off you go! Go on, no. Up you come! Come on, up you come! No, not you! Come on, up you come! But I said to Mr. Sissons over lunch, I said, you do realise that you are the only English person in that family, don't you? I said, you are representing England in the royal family. And she said, yes, she did know that. And I suppose now, Mr. Sissons, you're going to want to propose marriage to me as well, aren't you? Everybody wants to propose marriage to me. It's absolutely ridiculous, but I'm almost old enough to be your mother. Although I do have the unlined body of a young girl under this dress, you know. Oh, yes, sir. I shall be photographed naked every day, smeared in royal jelly, lying on a rug with a feather up my... Hello. Really? But... get everywhere, don't they? But if I was nervous, and I was, do you know who the most nervous person in the whole country was? The most nervous person in the entire realm? Helen Mirren. Oh. No, what's her name? Liz. Oh, bricking it she was. Bricking it. Because this looked very bad for her, didn't it? It could have turned into a rout. Could have turned into a right royal rout, given the Republican mood of the newspaper buying public at the time. Or, of course, admitted she had made a speech, hadn't she, the day before the funeral? She made a lovely speech from the heart. That's what they kept telling us, it was going to be a speech, as a grandmother, from the heart. And she gave us a lovely speech from the heart, written by Alistair Campbell, as we now know. Yes, from the heart, in which she said, "It is a unique opportunity to show to the whole world the entire British nation united in grief and respect. Thank God we have a Prime Minister capable of carrying us through these dark days. Vote Labour." I'm not saying. She'd even gone out and done a little royal walkabout. Remember that? She did all those people standing out there in front of Buckingham Palace, and she went out and did a little royal walkabout and spoke to all these people with only one thought in all their minds, and with whom she presumably discussed such matters as, how did you get here? Where have you come from? Have you been waiting long? What did you have for supper last night? Beans on toast. Oh, lovely. No, I've never had beans on toast, but I believe it is very nutritious and delicious. Yes. What? Look after William and Harry? Yes, yes, well, I would never have thought about that if you hadn't said anything. I would have just let him run shoeless through the streets of London. Thank you very much for your concern. She came right up to us, she did. She came right up close, and I said to her, didn't I? I said, look up to William and Harry, Your Majesty. Look up to William and Harry. And she said, yeah, she said, she would. And I'd say she looked quite tearful and upset, wouldn't you? She quite, oh, yes, she was very tearful, yes. Oh, she was very tearful and upset, yes. She came right up close to us. She was stood as close to me now as you are to me now. And I'll tell you, she'd been having a little private cry. Yes, hadn't she? A little private cry, so I recognised the signs, you see. She had a little bit of mascara just starting to run down the corner of her eye, and her rims are all red and puffy, you see. She had very red rims, didn't she? All these are signs only a woman could identify and use to her advantage. And it made us feel better, didn't it? Knowing she'd been crying. Yeah, we needed a humiliating gesture on the part of our superiors at this point, and it did the trick. And as she turned to go, I called after her, didn't I? I said, Your Majesty! I said, ma'am, I said, we're all gonna miss her, aren't we? And do you know, she flashed me such a beautiful smile, didn't she? A lovely, yeah, radiant smile it was. And she said, yes, yes. So that was nice, wasn't it? Yeah, we felt less inclined to scrag her after that, didn't we? Yeah, we did. Nevertheless, people were nervous. They didn't know how they themselves were going to respond at the funeral, let alone everybody else. I mean, it could have turned into a great big wailing, screaming mob, couldn't it? Could have been the Ayatollah's funeral all over again. And indeed, as the cortege emerged through the heat waves, shimmering off the tarmac outside Kensington Palace, there was heard from the lower left-hand corner of the screen a sound of sobbing, strange, unearthly moaning and sobbing and cries of, Diana, we love you! Diana, we love you! Diana! Oh, Diana, here we go, this is it! Soon the whole of London will be bawling, there'll be fires raging out of control, looting. But no. Let us be kind and assume it was a foreigner. Or Julie Burchill, ripped to the tits on cocaine, maybe. Because whoever it was, they completely misjudged the mood, didn't they? Because nobody took up the cry. I hope they felt very silly indeed. As the coffin passed on its way in a spectral silence, broken only by the clip-clop of the horse's hooves and the doleful bong of the great bell of Westminster. Boy, that got on my nerves, that bell, didn't it? Bloody bell, I got sick of it. Well, it was I kept forgetting about it, you see. It was the gap between the bongs, that's what did it. Because I've just been watching and thinking, oh, what lovely weather they're having. Oh, beautiful, isn't those flowers must smell lovely. Look at him with a leather jacket. Bong! And you'd think, oh, yes, she's dead. Meanwhile, at Westminster Abbey, the first of the mourners are starting to arrive. Here they come. Here's the first one. Here he is. Bearded, reassuring Dickie Attenborough. Hello, Dickie. He's tiny, you know, in real life. You're tiny, aren't you? Hello, shh, quiet. Now, be quiet. Stop jumping up and down. Calm down, Dickie. Now, Dickie, unbeknownst to all the viewing millions, has actually stage managed and orchestrated all the entertainment that we're about to see. He has even coached the Prime Minister and the brother of the deceased in their orations. It's another Gandhi for Dickie, you know, really. Really good, Dickie. Don't sit over there. Go on, up you go. Up you go. Go, quick as you can. Go on, up you go. Let's see what's going on outside. Oh, it's like the Oscars out there, as yet another celebrity mourner steps from their limousine onto the pavement. Here they come, the two Toms, Cruise and Hanks. Hello, Tom. Hello, and their wives. Yes, come in, there we are. Hello, Nicole and Mrs. Hanks. Yes, hello. No, actually, go and sit over there if you don't mind. They're in the country filming at the time, you see, and they make a sexy quartet, so we'll have them, said the organisers. So up you go, there we go, lovely. Oh, yes, you're just behind that man there. Yes, he's just vacated a seat for you. There you go. Up you go, okay. No cruising, Tom. Tom Cruise. Tom, oh, never mind, forget it. And here they go, oh, here he comes. The laughing, waving, smiling, bearded figure of Richard Branson, the people's capitalist. Hello, Richard. How lovely to see you. I love that little scraggy beard of yours as well. Lovely. Now, Richard, you can tell he's grief-stricken because it's the first time he has ever been seen in public wearing a tie. Honestly, first time ever. It's leather, but it's a tie. Thank you very much, Richard. Beautiful. Thank you for going to such an effort. Very nice. You've got a seat for you up there. Go on, right, just up at the top there, yeah. Don't need a hot air balloon to help. Yes, anyway. Yes, in you come. Oh, a bit of quiet, please. A bit of respect. A bit of hush. For one of the world's leading elder statesmen, Nobel Peace Prize winner, Dr. Sir Henry Kissinger. Hello. Hello, Henry. Always rather an unsettling presence at anybody's funeral, he is. Nice to see you, Henry. Yes, yeah. Go and sit down over there, you murdering bastard. Oh! Michael Barrymore! Michael! Come in! Michael Barrymore! Tragic but buoyant. Unlike his party guests. Yes! Come in! Shh, do you mind? You're at a funeral. Come in, Michael! He's doing a little royal walkabout of his own out there, he is. But no funny walks. Not today, not even from Michael. Bong! Meanwhile, back on the streets, an extraordinary spectacle is unfolding. A gaggle of senior royals, it is a gaggle, isn't it? It's a gaggle, yeah, are standing on the pavement outside Buckingham Palace. Not up on the balcony where they usually stand. No, down on the pavement with the rest of us. How lost and reduced they look standing there, bereft of their protocol. Just like us, not knowing what's going to happen next. And they have to stand underneath a great big banner that someone has tied to the railings of Buckingham Palace that says, Diana of Love. Diana of Love. Honestly, I think people felt too sorry for them to boo. But then, the Queen did a remarkable thing, something no one had ever seen the Queen do in public before. I'll show you. Here comes the coffin over there. Did you see that? Did you see that? Little nod. That's all it was. Blink and you'd missed it. Almost imperceptible it was. But it was one nod that changed history. Possibly she did it through clenched teeth. Or maybe she did it in memory of Marie Antoinette and her last very public nod of the head. Whatever. The coffin passes on its flower-strewn way. Bong! Meanwhile, back at the Abbey, a hush falls. As through the great west doors comes the tragic figure, come on, of Mohammed Fayed. One can only guess at the thoughts going through his mind at the moment. He who had done so much to protect the mother to the heir of the throne, who provided with the best security, the finest drivers that his fortune could afford, who only wanted to be a doting, chuckling grandpappy to those two boys. Not only had he lost his son, but he'd also lost his future daughter-in-law, in Islamic law, his passport to, well, to a passport really, isn't it? But never mind. No, it's all right, he'll be okay. Go and sit down over there, Mohammed. Yes, he's a tough old rooster. He'll get over it. Go on, go and sit up there, old boy. Yeah, that's all right. Right, okay. Prince Philip. No, he's not here yet. Yes, I'll tell him you're looking for him, don't worry. Listen, we've just got a minute. Yes, we've got a minute before the next mourner arrives. Let's have a little fag break, shall we? I mean, we can't smoke, obviously, but let's have a fag break anyway. Mohammed, yes, look over there. Look, he's a strange man, isn't he? Isn't he? Don't you think? Isn't he odd? Strange man, isn't he? And all these theories that he comes out with. You know, wild theories. Nobody ever sues him or anything. He gets away with it, doesn't he? So I just wanted to talk very quickly about these theories. Now, look, when I first did this show in '98, I didn't even think about the fact that she might have been murdered. It didn't even occur to me. I just thought, drunk driver, got in a car he wasn't licensed to drive, went too fast, hit a pillar, very sad, these things happen. But now, I don't know, I'm not so sure. I have my doubts. So I just wondered what you thought. Let's just have a quick show of hands. How many people here go along with that first theory that I said? Drunk driver, went too fast, very sad, these things happen. Yes, okay, and who thinks there was something else going on? There was something, she was knocked off. Yes, only you. Oh, no, no, so two up there. Yes, yeah. Oh, you follow me with your camera. This is the time capsule version of the show we're doing today, by the way. And, yes, so you, lad, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? Yes. 16. Gosh, you're only 6 when it all happened. Weren't you? Oh, sweet. This is like a history lesson for you, isn't it? Living history. This video might be used in schools for generations to come. How did you, who do you think did it then? Oh, you weren't paying attention, were you? You put your hand up for murder, you did. Well, listen. Right, okay. I'll tell you my thoughts. Now, my favourite conspiracy theory about this whole thing comes from a man called David Icke. Ever heard of him? Oh, yeah. He used to be a football commentator, now he's the son of God. Yes! And he's got this book. He's got this book called The Biggest Secret, and he's got a whole chapter all about Diana. It's fascinating. It really is interesting. Because he talks about all these different things. He says that she had to be knocked off because she knew the royal family's big secret, which is that they're half reptile. Yes. Oh yes, they can transmogrify into lizards at the drop of a hat, apparently. Geckos. You know? And also, you see, the tunnel where she died is called the Pont de l'Alma, which is the site of an ancient temple to the worship of the moon goddess, a.k.a. Diana. And they swerved and hit the 13th pillar, you see. Yeah, and also the other thing is the CCTV cameras. Now, these CCTV cameras, they're everywhere, aren't they? We accept it as part of modern city life. You know, you go out into the street here, you're on camera. They say the average Londoner is caught on camera something like 300 times a day. Can you imagine? 300 times a day. And maybe it makes you feel better to know that someone is watching, you know, while you're being beaten up in the street in broad daylight. People walking past, someone is watching. You might even get your face on Crime Watch with your face all pixelated, you know? You never know. But what's the point of having all these cameras if at one time they would have been useful? They're not working. Because see, there's 17 sets of cameras between the Ritz Hotel in Paris and the tunnel, including cameras in the tunnel. Now, who's seen the pictures from inside the tunnel, the CCTV cameras? Well, there aren't any. Why? Because the whole system went down just before the accident, for reasons that nobody can explain. Now, of course, cameras do fail, you know, and you see security systems go down, you know, it does happen. But it's a pity, isn't it? Because it would have answered all our questions. Was there a white Fiat Uno? Was there a blinding flash that caused them to swerve and hit the 13th pillar? What happened in the tunnel after she died? All these things, all we're left with is a great, big, fat, old-fashioned mystery. Now, I don't know, you see. I just don't know what the answer is. Maybe she was knocked off, maybe she wasn't, but how? But your mind starts to play with these things, and you start to think, well, is this the way the world works? Do we really live in a world where important people might just be knocked off by the powers that be? And what are the implications for us? If the people who are supposed to be our masters are behaving in this way, I mean, it's almost too big to think about. It makes you feel... Oh, excuse me just a minute, but never mind, because here come two of the nation's favourite pop stars. Hello, Mr. John. It's Elton. Hello, with his boyfriend, his friend. Let's say his friend, Mr. Furnish. Hello. Let's go and sit over there, if you wouldn't mind, up there. Oh, no, Elton, we need you. No, we'd go and sit over there. Yes, go and sit at the piano. We need you over there, Joanna, later on. Thank you very much. Don't worry, your boyfriend's all right. He'll be up there. He's sitting next to Tom Cruise. He's fine. He's fine. He's fine. They get you on like a house on fire. Don't worry about him. And Mr. Michael. Hello, George. How are you? George Michael. What? Toilets? Oh, yes, over here. Yes, the policeman on duty. You'll be all right. Don't worry. Bong! Meanwhile, back on the streets, another extraordinary spectacle is unfolding. A vast phalanx, aglitter with chrome, of the diseased, the disabled, and the dispossessed. Diana's people, that's what they called them. And they'd all been told very, very strictly not to wear formal clothes. Just T-shirts, shell suits, slacks, that kind of thing. I suppose they wouldn't be mistaken for celebrities and allowed into the Abbey. Well, you know, a formally dressed man in a wheelchair could have been Christopher Reeve, couldn't it? But T-shirts and slacks, oh no, sir, round to the side, chapel, if you don't mind. We don't want to embarrass the celebrities, do we? We've all been indicted from the main house. Thank you very much for your consideration, sir. Now, I thought that was enough. For one day, I was really going to have a bath by this point. I thought nothing else can happen now. But then something else did happen. Something no one had prepared us for, because there suddenly appeared, as if from nowhere, 4 members of the firm. The ex-husband of the deceased, looking even more strange than usual. The ex-father-in-law of the deceased, and, of course, the 2 motherless boys. Oh, and the brother of the deceased as well, yes, who marched not a few respectful paces behind, as you might expect. Oh, no, he marched right slap bang in the middle of them. separating the two boys, dominating the entire group, possibly a portent of what was to come. Now, William, very distinctive the way he walked as he followed the coffin. He kept his head down like that all the way. Like that. Glancing up occasionally. Just like her. The way she used to do. Little realizing that in that moment he was being reborn as a sex symbol. Because people get turned on by other people's grief, you know. Oh, they do. A lot of people do. Look at the newspapers. They love it. Front page of the newspaper. Grief. They love it. Get a picture of a celebrity in tears. Front page, guaranteed. You know what I mean? But let's face it, what woman wouldn't want to comfort him in his state on this day of all days? Who wouldn't? What woman wouldn't want him to hold him to her blouse and feel his hot tears moistening her collar and say to him, oh, my dear boy, my fresh young prince, my firm young prince, I'll look after you. You need a woman's love now, you do. Oh, your mother was a fine woman. She was a saint, your mother. Your mother was a saint. She lives on in your face as well. Oh, you got a lot to live up to, have you? Oh, but she's gone now. But I'll look after you. Don't worry. Go on, suckle. That's it, suckle. Go on. Poor lad. But on the day, it's little Harry who breaks your heart. Because he marches along like a brave little soldier, not showing a morsel of fear, showing that much derided stiff upper lip which got us through 2 world wars and didn't do him any harm either. He marched along staring ahead at the coffin in front of him, the coffin which bore for the world to see his own plaintive, handwritten message. Mummy. One can only hope that those boys didn't glance up and see the placard displayed at the side of the route, picked up by the television cameras, which said very simply, and with such good taste, William and Harry, please cry. But they had to be there, didn't they? Of course they should have been grieving in private, but no, they had to be there to act as a sort of protective shield to Prince Charles. Because things were looking very, very bad for Prince Charles. Daddy was in trouble. Daddy's stock had never been lower. People were blaming Prince Charles somehow, indirectly, for Diana's death. Taunts were heard from the crowd as he marched by, even in the hearing of his own 2 sons. Bastard! Murderer! I had visions of some outraged matron in the crowd with a cry of, this is for Diana, hurling a rotten tomato at him. And then missing and hitting Harry smack on the side of the face. Oh, no, my love. Oh, I'm sorry, my love. I didn't mean for it to hit you. That was for your dad, the murdering bastard. I'm sorry, my darling. Oh, please forgive me. But no use her trying to explain herself. Not with the crowd in the mood it was in today. She'd be stamped down, wouldn't she? Beaten down and stamped upon until she was nothing more than a sticky patch under the people's feet. After all, she would have wanted it that way. And as Harry marches bravely on, the tomato pit sliding down his face, the coffin passes on its weary way. Bong! Meanwhile, at Westminster Abbey, or is it Westminster Abbey? Is it? Is it? Because for a minute there, I thought it was La Scala Milan. Because through the great west doors, barely touching the sides, supported by 2 handmaidens from the chorus, comes the unmistakable figure of Luciano Pavarotti, his face a mask of operatic grief. Roar! Pavarotti will not sing today. He's too grief-stricken, thank goodness. But in all fairness to him, his ghastly caterwauling might have given a much-needed touch of class to the proceedings, as we shall see. Hot on his heels, 3 vampires step from their black limousine onto the curb outside. Here they come. Hello, Mrs. Windsor. Hello, Your Majesty. Nice to see you. Mrs. Armstrong-Jones. Come on, up you get there. There we are, lovely. And another protective shield to the much-loved granny of the nation, Mrs. Tiggywinkle. Hello, dear. Hello. Whom lip readers all over the world were certain they saw say, everything is going just as I planned. We're going to hide them away. We're going to hide them away in a little quiet, dark corner of the Abbey where nobody can see them. It's just as well, given what's to come. Put them behind this curtain here. I think, yes. Ma'ams, your ma'ams. Over here, yes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Take your time, dear. No, it's all right. All the time in the world for you, my love. Come on. Yes, you look very good in black. Should wear it more often. Yes, very nice. Go on, Fishbones. In you go. Get in there. She's a handful. She really is. Get back in. Go on. Get back in. Oh, she's a pest. Anyway, everybody settled. Right? Everybody had a tinkle. Oh, George. Hang on just a minute, George. Don't put it down. Put it away, George. Put it away. For goodness sake, not today of all days. Honestly, pull yourself together. No, not like that. No, just go and sit down there. Right. Very good. Right, all got your seatbelts fastened? Very good. It's going to be a bumpy ride. As the organ strikes up the warm, familiar chords of Dvorak's Largo. La da dee da da, la da dee da, also known as the Hovis music. La dee da 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 da, la da dee da da. Everybody, la da dee da da, la da dee da da, dee da 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 da. Special cutaway for television viewers, the Union Jack flag flying above Buckingham Palace falls slowly to its half-mast point, just as Mr. Murdoch decreed it must. Protocol and Winston Churchill be buggered. And then, making her last great entrance, in comes Diana. You can almost hear her calling to the Queen Mother from her coffin. Beat that, you old bat. And then, as the choir strikes up without a trace of irony, God Save the Queen, she begins a rather slow, unsteady progress up the aisle, supported by 8 hunks in uniform, swaying slightly from side to side like an inebriated dowager. Which is scarcely odd when you find out that apparently the coffin was lined with lead. Did you know that? The coffin was lined with lead. Which has caused some people to doubt whether she actually is buried on that little island after all. Because how would you get a thing like this across? It's heavier than Pavarotti, this thing. All of these boys look strained. We need something the size of the QE2 to get this thing across. And besides, I heard that apparently this little island has been used for generations of the Spencer family to bury their beloved family dogs. It's a pet cemetery. They're not going to bury her in there with a lot of old poodle bones, are they? She's in the crypt with the rest of them. You mark my words, it'll all come out one day. She's in the crypt. Yes. Say you heard it here first. Anyway, it was a very nice service, I thought. Didn't you? Very nice service. To begin with. With some nice hymns, no dirges unfortunately, but some nice hymns. I vow to thee my country, the king of love my shepherd is. Some nice readings from the Bible, none of which meant anything to anyone, which of course is exactly what you want at a funeral, isn't it? Everything went very beautifully until about a third of the way through, when it all started to go horribly wrong. First of all, our beloved Prime Minister, still riding his wave of popularity, his dazzling smile firmly locked away for the day, mounts the pulpit. Big day for Tony. Big day for Tony. Lady Thatcher was down there in the pews looking up to him saying, "You lucky sod! I'd still be in power now if I'd had this opportunity." But Maggie had her Falklands, and Tony has his dead people's princess. Good for him. I mean, he might have wished to come a better time. Last May would have been good if she could have hung on a bit. But, as a politician, you have to grab these opportunities as they arise and make the most of them, with the eyes of the world upon him. For the first time in his career, he made a speech as follows. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things, for now we see through a glass, darkly. But then, face to face, now I know in part. But then, shall I know, even as also I am known? So true, don't you think? Oh, so true, yes. Hit the nail on the head there, didn't he? And so beautifully read. Coached by Dickie, you'd never guess, would you? Anyway, thank you very much, Tony. Next! Who remembers what came next? Who remembers? Have we got a bit touch of house lights, dear? They keep going off, don't they? Hello, you still there? Yeah, anybody remember what came next? Who was the next act? No, the brother, that's the big finale. No. Elton! Elton, yes! Fat Reg at the piano. No, sorry, Cliff. Cliff Richard's down there as well. Sorry, Cliff. It's Elton's turn. Save it for Wimbledon. Elton has chosen to entertain us at this point with his famous song about Marilyn Monroe. Now, this is... I don't understand why. Why? To sing a song about this lovely, delightful, beautiful film star, but faded, let's face it, and who committed suicide. Yeah, right. To remember the mother of these two boys who have to sit there in public listening to this excruciating exercise in bad taste. This appalling old queen. And I speak as an appalling old queen myself. This appalling old queen. Singing a ghastly song about their mother in a bad American accent as if they hadn't suffered enough. And why did he have to sing all his songs in an American accent anyway? I've never understood that. He said, and your footsteps will always wander down England's greenest hills. He's from Pinner, for God's sake. Bloody cheek. But it's no use protesting about bad taste. Bad taste has been abolished by this point, you see. Because he's done it, hasn't he? He's done it. He's captured the nation's mood. You see, we don't have religion anymore, really, in this country, so hymns are meaningless to us. But pop songs, we understand. And besides, it only puts the audience in a more vulnerable and receptive mood for what is to come. Possibly the highlight of the funeral. The brother of the deceased. Her brother, almost a saint by association, mounts the pulpit and makes a speech of Shakespearean proportions. Turn them off, please. And makes a speech of Shakespearean proportions, probably written by Alistair Campbell as well, Britain's greatest living playwright. Dramatist, I should say. The speech which shakes the establishment of which Earl Spencer himself is a leading member to its very foundations. I stand before you, the representative of a family in grief, in a country in mourning, before a world in shock. He addresses much of his speech to Diana, as if she was there to hear it, which of course she isn't, because she's dead. He talks about her feelings of unworthiness, her eating disorders. He refers to, that's it, her constituency of the rejected. Mentions AIDS. AIDS? I mean, they're not even supposed to know AIDS exists. But he mentions it. Makes everybody feel guilty when he talks about how puzzled she was when her genuinely good intentions were sneered at. It is baffling, he said. As to the perpetrators of the murder, he didn't actually use the word, but yeah, the murder of his sister. The Earl pointed his calm, steady finger at you, murdering scum! You're not a murderer, are you? You're not a murderer. No, good, sorry, yes, just wanted to check. I mean, not a murderer, a journalist, yes, sorry, I'll call him. Yes, you're not a murderer, yes, it was you who, like a pack of wolves, hounded her like a frightened doe to her horrible death, pursuing your quarry even unto her dying moments. So powerful was the Earl's rhetoric that even the gentlemen of the press themselves, for an instant, believed him. They sat with their heads sunk in shame. But the nobleman wasn't finished yet. No, he had one more thunderbolt to hurl. A tense hush fell as sphincters tightened throughout the Abbey. In a great ring surrounding the Abbey, and a great wave of sphincters tightening throughout the country and to a lesser extent the globe. These boys, he vowed, these poor, beautiful, motherless boys must not be allowed to go the same way. He vowed to Diana, as their blood relative, that they would not be allowed to grow up like that bunch of cold-blooded, thin-lipped krauts! All excepting the Queen Mother, of course, who is Scottish right down to her wonderful, infectious smile. No, he said, they must be allowed to grow up understanding the lives of ordinary people as we do on our luxury fortress in Cape Town. Yes! They must be allowed to grow up understanding the lives and aspirations of ordinary British people, who, after all, one of them will one day rule. To these boys, on your behalf, Diana, he said, I make this pledge. See, all these pledges and vows. It's getting too much, wasn't it? It was like, you wonder what was going to happen next. It's like the earth was moving beneath your sofa. And as the Earl's speech came to its tremulous, lip-trembling end, and he descended from the pulpit, there was a brief, tense silence. And then, someone in Lerwick, Shetland, started to clap. And someone in Falmouth and Cornwall, and someone in Aberystwyth, and someone in King's Lynn started to clap. And soon, in nanoseconds, a great wave of clapping spread through the country, heading down towards London, where it engulfed the crowds around the Abbey, and finally forced its way into the Abbey, going up the aisle, round the nave, and back again, until soon everybody in Westminster Abbey was clapping. Everybody, even the organist. Everybody was clapping. Even our beloved gap-toothed Archbishop of Canterbury was clapping, surreptitiously, under his cassock. Well, that's what we assume he was doing. Whatever turns you on, they're a funny lot they are, aren't they? But everybody clapped for 38 seconds. I've timed it. You look at the video, 38 seconds, that's a long time for a funeral. 38 seconds. Everybody clapped, except Earl Spencer and the entire royal family. They sat there, frozen in terror, as the applause erupted around them. It was the worst moment in the Queen's entire reign. Even Cliff Richard was clapping, for God's sake. And the princes, the little princes, what do you think they must have made of it all? They must have sat there with their eyes darting from side to side, wondering who to trust. Who were their friends now? They knew that this meant trouble. This speech had practically spelt the end of the monarchy. They knew that Granny would not be a happy lady after this. There'd be no reassuring pats on the shoulder from her tonight. And with not a dry eye in the house, as Diana left the Abbey for her long final journey through the grimy streets of North London, past crowds of well-meaning mourners hurling floral tributes onto the windscreen of the hearse, almost embroidering the princess in her second tragic car accident of the week. Past the mosque, where Dodie was so hastily interred, past the Brent Cross shopping complex, and onto the northbound carriageway of the great M1 motorway. The restless eyes of the television cameras followed her, every step of the way, longing for something else to happen. Just one more thing, anything. A kitty getting run over by the hearse, anything. Just one more photo opportunity before she disappeared into her grave, wherever that may be, forever. As the gates of Thorpe clanged shut behind her, everybody knew that something had changed. What? It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, something did change. I'm sure it did. And Richard Madeley said, I heard him say it, he said we had to carry on with the spirit of love, which we now know to be her bequest. That's what he said. Well, she did campaign against landmines, didn't she? That was good. That was good. And Tony, ever alive to public opinion, swiftly banned them. Just as well she didn't campaign against, daisy cutters and depleted uranium and white phosphorus and cluster bombs. Or we wouldn't stand a chance in the war against terrorism, would we? No. Well, whether anything changed or not, I suppose we'd all been touched by her death, even those of us who really didn't give a fig about her while she was alive. Maybe because we realized that even she, who was so famous and so privileged and so scrutinized, could, in the one moment when no one was looking, be snuffed out and consigned to history. Well, it could happen to any of us, couldn't it? None of us know which of our days on earth will be our last. So I suppose the message is you just have to enjoy them, make the most of every day you do get, and be ready to go. And remember the words of the great Bloomsbury poet Edward Knobloch. Yes, you can look him up. Edward Knobloch, who said, if life is a joke, let's make it a good one. I feel a dirge coming on.
Come away, death, and in sad cypress let me be laid. Fly away, breath. I am slain by a fair, cruel maid. My shroud of white stuck all with you. Oh, prepare it. My part of death, no one so true did share. Not a flood, sweet on my black coffin. Let there be stroke. Not a friend greet my poor corpse where my bones shall be thrown. A thousand sighs to say, lay me oh where sad